All right, welcome to another episode of Sacred Fame Podcast. I'm your host, Kasia Rachfall, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Doolin, who has so much cool wisdom to share, and they've really embraced the essence of what I call sacred fame. And so I can't wait to just dive into the chat. Welcome, Gray.
Yay, thank you, Kasia. I'm really excited to be here having this conversation with you.
Yeah, we connected, I think, for the first time about a year and a half ago when I was just starting to really courageously bring the subject forward of this whole idea of sacred fame. And you took part of a series of sacred fame circles that I held last summer. And I feel like you've really embraced the whole idea. And so I couldn't wait to have you on to talk to you because I just love your whole journey, and whatever details you'd love to share, please do. Like, where do you want to start?
Like, exactly. Where's the entry point in there?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I do love the notion of sacred fame. I think that last summer when I signed up for your circles and was involved with them, I think it's been very clear to me that this lifetime that I'm in currently, that I'm meant to have big impact, and that I feel called towards fame. And I think that there's been a little bit of judgment or maybe shame around embracing that desire and being like, yes, I want big impact, I want a lot of followers. And there is something I think about the pairing of the sacredness of that it can be holy, that it is tied to our soul, it is tied to our purpose, that gave me this permission to be fuck yeah, I want to be sacred famous, so I'm gonna embody that and live into that in a way that feels holy to me and divine, so divine.
And your work is so impactful. I mean, you're serving a group of people that notoriously have been downtrodden and marginalized, and I think it's so beautiful that you've embraced the direction that you're going in with your work, and it's raw and edgy, and I'd love to hear more about what you've been up to.
Yeah, yes, it is raw and edgy. It's my
I
Aries
love it.
moon coming out. Look out! I don't care what you think. I'm just here for it.
Yeah.
Well, it's so I don't know if maybe it's been explicit in you seeing my work, but so when we first came together, I was serving primarily queer and trans communities. And last fall or early winter, I made the decision to let that go, and to open up who I was serving, because I don't know, I realized that I had this story of a little bit of a savior complex, or that I needed to go and help and fix folks who shared my identities, these marginalized identities. And when I let go of that I have to work really hard, we have to struggle to heal, it's my responsibility to I feel 1,000 pounds was lifted off of me. And I was oh, actually, I just get to be here to enjoy pleasure, lean into my desires, have lots of hot sex, do the things I want to do, have that all relate to my work with cis women, and yes, this is yes, I'm just saying yes to all of this. And it liberated me in a way that I think wasn't expecting and hadn't really given myself permission. I'd been so just so tied to the struggle about what my work needed to be, how much I needed to struggle, how much I needed to help people who were struggling. There's just so much energy that I call back to myself.
I love that. And even there's a whole paradigm right now of the feminine rising. And sometimes I've definitely gotten caught up in this idea of okay, feminine rising. So what does that mean? Well, practical, tactical, how do we do this feminine thing? And you're really just embracing this beautiful side of it, pleasure and fun and I don't know, beauty. A lot of women have a hard time with that. So how do you bring that out for them?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm just laughing too because I remember that you're a Capricorn. You have a lot of Capricorn energy, so I know it's extra hard.
Yep.
I love my Capricorn females. Where it's just yeah.
What can I do?
Exactly. Stop doing. That's what you could do.
That's really hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that this is that kind of unique point where my transgender identity comes in, where I was assigned female at birth, and so have like a lifelong relationship with the feminine and like leaning into that. And I certainly have not been sort of like the pleasure and surrender and kind of the flowy feminine parts, like that has been work that I've had to do myself in like these past few years. But what I love about working with women and our folks who are assigned female at birth is because I've done my own work around really leaning into that kind of like wildness, like the saying yes, the sort of unleashed feminine, and then like bringing in this like masculine container that I both have within myself to hold and be in relationship with that, but then bring that in for women's wildness too, to say this is a safe place where you can like let that wildness go. Like I want to hear your desires, like I want to hear what you want, like I want just like what you think is dirty and shameful and like just like should not be spoken out loud, like bring all of that wildness. I just like want it sort of like unleashed into the space, and here I am to help you contain that and hold that in a way that doesn't feel stifling or toxic or harmful in any way, but that just says yes, like I see you, and like let me help you like explore and like live that out.
That's really, really beautiful. How have your clients been impacted through that? What has this meant for them? Like, I mean, sort of vicariously living through them a little bit, like what does this mean for women in general?
I would say if I was to boil down the feedback that I consistently get, it is that after working with me is that they trust themselves more, and then it allows them to trust that the partner or the intimacy that they desire is out there for them. And that makes sense, right? When we trust ourselves, we trust ourselves to enter into any situation. Like if I know that I'm solid in myself, I know that I can hold boundaries, I know that I can speak my desires, like that's what I'm going to call in. So I can trust myself and I trust the external world to engage with me in that way. So that's sort of like the two prong feedback that I get, and that just it feels like everything, because when you have that anchor in yourself, I mean that's your home. You can go anywhere with that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely mirrors what I'm wanting to do in the world. And even the whole idea of sacred fame being seen and heard out there means you first have to see and hear yourself. And if there's a piece of you that feels like it's shut down or it can't be spoken out loud, that really limits us, doesn't it? Whether it's sexuality related or body image related or career related or anything really, I imagine any resistance to a piece of ourselves probably comes out in your work too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and in my work, we're often exploring and talking about intimacy, which is, people want relationships, they want love, they want like long-lasting, deep connection with other humans, and the cornerstone of that work though is intimacy with self. Like you cannot like there's just it's literally impossible, right? If intimacy, the definition of intimacy is the ability to be present with another person's like version of reality, like how could I possibly sit with your version of reality if I'm not even present to my own? It's an impossibility.
Where does your courage come from, do you think?
I think partly my Aries moon, and I don't know. I think that it feels just kind of like core to who I am. I mean, I've already like I'm a trans person. Like I came out super young to my parents, and that like didn't fly. So I just like I've never been conventional. I've always been pushing against the norm, like in sort of every aspect of my like life and identity. I think it's an accumulation of experience and that. And I also over the winter I had an Akashic Records reading, and had a very sweet interaction with the record keeper, who told me that they like I don't know they brought this like lifetime to my soul and like specifically asked me to step into this life, because of what it would require of me. And I guess I was like, fuck yes, let's do this.
That's so fun. Yeah. Well, you've had this amazing, like you've been traveling around the country and just following the adventure. And at a time when a lot of people are feeling very separate, very divided, very much stuck and limited, how have you navigated all of that by, sticking to your own truth?
Yeah, I've had to cut out a lot of noise. just yeah, I feel like head down. I have been so clear on my vision for the past year. um, I yeah, I just I surrounded myself with people who are committed to their vision, or who are dreaming big, who
Mhm.
see possibility, who like lean into that, who are like yes, and what if this reality, who just were always kind of expanding in their level of like dream and vision. um,
Mhm.
and have tried to like stay out of fear. I it's this fine balance between being present and acknowledging like what is happening, and like the suffering and the heartache and all of that. And also, like, my firm belief is that I can be of most impact to the world when my nervous system is regulated, when I am taking care of myself. Because if I'm out there consuming all of this news and like popping off and like getting caught up in dramas, it's not helpful to anyone.
Mhm.
So my focus has been on continued healing, regulating my nervous system, staying clear in my vision, and
Mhm.
just like getting it the fuck done.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say is your number one thing that you do for yourself to help yourself regulate?
Just a lot of spaciousness. Like, if I need, like, I mean, there are days where I'll like just lie in bed for like 3 hours and just like silence, like just a lot of, like, that's when I like do my best thinking. Or if I feel stuck or confused, that's when the stuff
Mhm.
will come through. I mean, I do a lot of like emotional hygiene. I move my body. I like cry. I cathart. My body is my most important tool.
Mhm.
And so I like, my number one priority is that relationship, and like keeping it in good
Yeah.
working order.
No, I agree with you. And so for women especially, a lot of them have like are not only disconnected from, their emotions and stuff, but their bodies especially. And I remember having times in my life where I wasn't even in here. I was like somewhere up here. What would you say is the number one way to start connecting? Like to believe that it's possible to come back in here and feel safe?
Yeah, I would say like micro moments, just to
Mm-hmm.
like, the Gottman Institute, or a lot of like relational things, talk about bids for connection, like with our partners and our friends. But our bodies are making bids for connection all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like these small aches, or to slow down, or to take a nap, or to eat this certain thing. Like beginning to turn towards ourselves when those bids for connection come up. That's that intimacy that I'm talking about. Is to begin to
Mm-hmm.
say, this is my most important relationship. This allows me to show up as I want to in my other relationships. And so I'm just going to say yes to myself. And that, when we begin to turn towards ourselves in that way, just as when our partner acknowledges, when we say, hey, look at the sunset's beautiful. And the partner's like, yeah, it is. When that is acknowledged, right, we feel seen and heard. The same thing in our relationship with ourselves. When we begin to build that self trust, that's that internal safety to say, I see myself, I acknowledge myself, like this is a safe place to be here.
I love that because it really simplifies it. It's not like a prescribed formula of you must do this first and this second. It's really just listening, deep listening to our own self.
Yep, absolutely.
What would you say to someone who thinks they're doing it wrong
Mm,
because they don't feel connected fast enough, or they feel like they're doing all the right things, but yet it's not really working?
I would say to like be with that. Like, even
Mm-hmm.
that judgment, that story about it being right, that story about it happening fast enough. Like, again, those are those micro moments. Those are the moments to be like, ouch. Like, here I am judging this process. Here I am thinking I'm not doing it right. Like, those are even more moments to keep leaning in. And so
Mm.
that, just again, keep turning towards self. And that, those are the moments to like, just to be with yourself and love yourself.
I love that. It can be such a beautiful return to self when we can hold that space for ourselves. Especially, a lot of us are really good at holding that space. Like if our best friend phones and he, she, or they are freaking out, and we're like, oh, it's okay, here, let me hold space for you, and all we want to do is love them, and yet we're so harsh on ourselves. So I love that. Just breaking down this whole paradigm of judgment and self disconnection one tiny step at a time. If you want to sleep in an extra half hour, or if you want to, like, breathe a few more moments in the park, that's what you need in that moment. So looking for those moments. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. yeah, it's like it doesn't need to be this like $3,000 8-week course that you take with someone.
Right.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it just, yeah, it's so simple, but because so many of us are disconnected from our bodies and our like internal experience, like it's not
Yeah.
easy. Like
Yeah.
we're turning away for a reason, you know.
Yeah, and so many of us learned that like self-care has to be like lattes, massages, trips to the bookstore, and that like who has time first of all, and especially in the
Yeah.
lockdown, we can't do a lot of that. So really turning within is the key, and it can be so simple. Yeah, that's really nice. What would you say is like your biggest piece of wisdom that you want to leave the world as your legacy?
Oh my god.
No
Talk
pressure.
about like the question. um I mean, I feel like as a life path 6, I'm just like I'm here to like harmonize and just be like a channel for love. Just I think that right. I mean, and we were just talking about sort of like turning towards the judgment or the things that feel harder. I think that whether it's about transness, whether it's about integrating this masculine feminine, whether it's about integrating the light and the shadow, I think like just being present to literally everything that arises. It's just the gateway.
Mm-hmm.
It it literally is the gateway to everything.
I think that's really wise because it leaves so much open, and yet it's like such a beautiful, simple, like this is the hallway. Just walk and see what's there. Yeah.
Yes.
Keep opening the doors into the self. Yeah.
Yeah. And specifically through the body, because I think that the body contains everything like it
Yeah.
contains everything that we need to know.
Yeah, it's like the next frontier that we haven't really explored in this way. We've explored it, like we've cut it into pieces and looked at all the little bits and physiology and all that, but we're talking about connection and knowing it in this way. Yeah, love that. Well, given that this whole podcast is about like saying the shit you want to say, do you feel like even though you've been so bold and so courageous and outspoken about your mission and vision, is there something you haven't said yet that you'd like to say?
On the pot
Yeah,
in
to the
general,
world.
world, just like let yourself have what you fucking want.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I love that. What's next for you, Gray? What do you want?
Hmm. I mean, the vision that I'm creating right now, you know, I'm traveling, doing my work. I'm doing these. I like launched formally my one-on-one intimacy intensive offering last month, and so, yeah, the vision I'm living into is doing 1 to 2 of those a month, and then traveling in between and visiting people I love and meeting new loves and just
Mm-hmm.
like enjoying my effing life.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Where can people find you?
The best place right now is on Instagram at Gray Doolin. And
Mm-hmm.
I can send you a handle
Yeah.
information for that. But yeah, Instagram is the best place right now. I'm on there and active and love to, yeah, chat with people and interact and all that.
Cool. Yeah, your energy, your posts are always so intimate and so supportive. Like I always find a nugget of gold in all of them, and it's always like, oh my god, how did they know that I needed to read this in this moment? Like you're in my head a lot. Which is
I've heard
awesome.
I've heard that a lot. I have had clients tell me that they're always like, "What would Gray say?" So apparently, lots of people are like channeling me. I've been called like a giant Pez dispenser of wisdom before. So.
Totally. And it's always like your stops really, or your stops posts really make me stop. And sometimes if the algorithm makes you disappear for a while and then comes back, I'm like, okay, clearly I needed to see this because they're
Yeah,
talking about something epic. So I'm gonna pay
yeah,
attention.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
totally. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm a little edgy, I think, sometimes for the algorithm too, but I am yeah, I don't like get into story about it. Like the right people are gonna see, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm creating my feast for people to come, and it's all there
Really.
when they need it.
I firmly believe that our spirit is stronger than any algorithm, and the right people will see when they need to see it. So
Yeah,
takes the
absolutely.
pressure off. I love that.
Totally.
I love
Totally.
that. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor to hear more about your work and the direction you're taking. And thank you for sharing your beautiful wisdom. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure.
Take care.